Unfortunately, I was on the ad hoc committee. It was a strange thing. I was an exec VP, not a president. But the symbol selection committee, which was charged not just for the symbol selection, but charged to create the system and to proof it, to create the proofs of its returns, was important enough so that the ad hoc committee felt they ought to put me on board. And they did. And it was maybe last year that I became a president and was able to live with it. And I acted as the go-between between the two. I was the youngest one in the room most of the time. I think I was, 41 years old, but I had a big mouth, and I could sell what we needed, and we went back and forth, but it didn't take much. This was a very intelligent ad hoc committee, and we had the advantage of Bert Gookin, who was really involved, one of the great leaders that I can remember. And a guy like Jim Wyman, who understood the magic of communicating to the other CEOs what was going on, not just on the ad hoc committee, but all over the place. And so we'd go to the meetings, I would present what we were doing and where we were going, and these guys would take it, absorb it, and go out and sell what we were doing. There was very little playback. They did the tough job. One of the things I didn't mention was that for many years prior to 1970, I chaired the National Association of Food Chain Productivity Committee and worked on a number of different projects that I sponsored that had to be done. Took over from a guy named Jack Struby of Kroger. And Jack Struby in many ways could be called the father of this thing. Jack understood it. He was a patent lawyer, but he was also a distribution expert. He was a brilliant man, and the easiest man to work with that I've ever met. He went on to chair the UPC committees, and business was finally an organization standing on its own, and had a great deal to do with strengthening it to go for the future. But he was there in the background. He was there working with the ad hoc committee. And Jack could understand what we were doing and understood the process. And getting Jack to approve it, and he was Bob Ader's man on the ad hoc, when Jack understood what was going on, he could put the kosher sign on what we were doing, and he did. And he fed back to us on a regular basis. So that's how we related. It was people. They let us run. They knew they had put a group of young Turks, each of them brilliant in their own right, in charge of a defined set of objectives and criteria, which they had the chance to review. And they really believed that we would live by it. Again, I go back to the structure that McKinsey imposed on us of how to do it was one, if we could only do it in our own businesses on a regular basis, would have made each of us giants. At any rate, that worked.
Okay, great.
If there's one thing that I learned in that process, it was how to manage this kind of an effort. And it led me to an attitude towards ANSII and International Standards Organization that was very important for them too. When it was decided that we would go beyond UPC and get the branding that we could get from the International Standards Organization, I was asked to chair the committee, the ANSII, the ISO committee. And I took it on because I thought it was a chance for me to put to work some of the things I had learned, to see what could be done to speed up the process at ANSII, at both ANSII and international standards. And it's very difficult. But I learned, and others learned from me, how to play the edges so that we could get the speed and get the convictions and use the muscle, because muscle is required, don't anybody kid you, that it evaded the organization for many years. And I'm proud of that activity. I loved it, how to bring groups together and have them reach a conclusion was for me the personal benefit of what we did.